Well, good evening to each and every one of you who have joined us tonight on our ACDP live stream, where we speak to you about matters pertaining to the country, to each and every one of us within the ACDP and the entire country, South Africa. So once again, we just want to say a big thank you to everyone who has joined in and those who have been joining in week after week. We appreciate you and we appreciate your support. Want to just give an apology on behalf of our president. Is not able to join tonight because he is traveling with other political leaders, and where he currently is out in the rural area, the connection is not very good. So our president sends his apologies. And so for tonight, I am going to be flying solo, but he assured me that next week I will resume as co-pilot. So we want to just give the apology on behalf of our president, but clearly next week he will be back with us. Want to also just say that South Africa is at a crossroads. In South Africa, the crossroads also is a battle. It's a battle of ideas. It's a battle of concepts. It's a battle of ideologies. It's a battle of worldview. And if we are not clear in terms of what our ideology, what our worldview, what our concepts are, what our norms and our values are, then others will begin to dictate that for us. And so it's absolutely clear that you and I be sure and that you and I be confident in terms of our worldview, what it is that we base our faith on, and why it is that we say and do what we say. And this clash of ideology, this clash of worldviews is coming to a head. And so I want to encourage you to just stay strong at this time. Don't buckle in, don't give up, don't give in, stay strong, because everyone is needed in this fight, the end time fight, as you and I would know it. So with those few words, we have a wonderful program lined up. We have our members of parliament, Steve Swart, a member of the Justice Portfolio Committee and Finance Committee at Parliament, who will be joining us shortly, and he's going to be speaking to us on why the ACDP is not supporting the new marriage bill. And then we're also going to be joined in by the Honorable Mari Sukers, and she's going to be speaking to us on our position on the public protector and why it is that the ACDP voted in support of the report and the removal of the public protector. So, and then I will speak a little bit about the national multi-party charter towards the end, time permitting. So that's our program for the night. And so we're going to just take a few comments and let's see who's joined us from around the country. Mario Brink. Shalom, leaders and ACDP members. We pray God's blessing over our meetings. Yes and amen. Othniel Linden Joster, Stellenbosch, Cape Winelands region in the house. Blessings, Othleen. The two of us. Good evening, my DP and ACDP family. Good evening. Nicole Sukers, good evening to our ACDP leadership. Good evening to you, Nicole Sterkte. Moses Poo, good evening, Opoe. Deputy, good evening, President and the family of the ACDP, as well as DP. Good evening to you, Moses. Marianne, yeah, from the Eastern Cape. And her husband, I hope he's also joined in. Good evening to you. Corinne de Klerk, good evening, Madame de Klerk. And Kino from the Western Cape. Good evening, DP and leaders and ACDP family. It seems like Western Cape and Eastern Cape. I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody else I'm not getting Tandeka. Mtabela, good evening, President DP, ACDP family, KZN, there we go, my home province. Bernard, home province again. Good evening, Deputy President from Durban, Bernard and Joanne Hathrow. Good to have you. And then we have Cranston Holland Ramsey. Good evening, Cranston. Good evening, DP and ACDP family and leadership. Bless you. Jerome Alex September. Greetings, Deputy. Great talk on ENCA earlier. Thank you, Jerome. Yeah, so we've been sharing between myself, the President, and Honorable Steve on the marriage bill. So I did the interview on ENCA earlier. Thank you for that comment. Tlotliso Mputi, greetings, Deputy, greetings to you, Tlotliso Puti. Good afternoon, my DP. Good afternoon, good evening, Puti. Cheryl, I'm not sure whether Cheryl is from the Western Cape or Gauteng, but good evening to you, our NSG. And Mbulelo Kadu, good evening, DP and ACDP family. Good evening. Where's Mpumalanga? There we go. Just like they were reading, Joseph reading my thoughts. Hearty greetings, DP and ACDP family. Blessings, blessings. Johan, there we go. Good evening, DP. Western Cape again. Thank you, Johan. God bless you. Tabang Moshidi, we maybe just take, hey, DP. All right, I like that. Something different. We'll take maybe 2 or 3 more. Joel Makola, yeah, Limpopo. Glad to have Limpopo also with us. Blessings, Joel, PL from Limpopo. And then we have Gordon Adams. Good night. No. It's good evening. We're not saying bye for now, Gordon, but good evening, ACTP family. Gordon, bless you, sir. Bless you. And then we'll have, let's take this as the last one as we, that's Simi Mboweni. And so Pastor Simi, bless you, bless you, bless you. Glad also to see and to have you with us this evening. ACDP leadership is also leading from the front. And so the Lord bless you all. And thank you again for those greetings and some kind words also that were expressed. All right, we are going to go into the marriage bill and the reason why the ACDP has not supported and is not in support of the current marriage bill. You may be aware that what has happened is the consolidation or the rationalization of the 3 marriage bills into one. It's the Marriage Bill, Marriage Act of 1961, the Customary Marriage Act of 2008, 1998, and then the Civil Unions Act of 2006, and then the Civil Union Amendment Act of 2020. So these acts were 3 acts, essentially catering for the different types of marriages in South Africa because of the different views. To a large extent, the first one, the Marriage Act, catered for your monogamous heterosexual marriages and those that we support. That's marriage between a husband and a wife. Customary marriages, so there was the monogamous approach for the first one, and then the Customary Marriage Act dealt with polygamy, because there you had, in terms of the traditional custom, some men took on many wives, and so there was the Customary Traditional Marriage Act, and then you had the Civil Unions Act for same-sex couples. So these 3 have now been amalgamated, and so we're going to have our Honorable Steve Swart to come and share with us why the ACDP has taken the stance that we have. Steve, over to you, my brother.
Well, good evening, DP, and good evening to everyone on the platform. Just let me know if there's an echo at all, but I just want to also greet our President, who is busy traveling, I understand, and just to, again, commend you and the President for all the information that you've been supplying to all of us. It's really an honor to share the platform with you. Well done today on the debate on ENCA. And yes, so when we have a look at the proposed marriage bill, and remember at this stage, it is purely in a draft form. It is before the Department of Home Affairs, and the ACDP made a presentation, a formal legal presentation, which I drafted before the cutoff dates, and that was the end of August, setting out our objections to the Consolidated or Single Marriage Bill. Firstly, I think it's very important for us as the outset to say that we understand that marriage is a God-given institution. It is not a man-made institution. It is a unique, ordained by God and recognized in all human cultures and religions. And it's existed since the beginning of civilization, and it predates the state and laws. And how dare a court or a government want to redefine what marriage is? That we've got a major problem from our perspective as the ACDP. We support the existing marriage bill as being a marriage act, which goes back to 1961, as being the recognition of a marriage between a husband and a wife. Now, as the DP pointed out, over the years, there have been other laws that have been passed, such as the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act to recognize traditional polygamous marriages, and of course, the much contentious issue relating to same-sex unions, which was the bill in 2006, which the ACDP worked on and opposed vigorously. Many of you will remember that. The Marriage Alliance that was formed of main denominations and all church groupings, faith groupings, which opposed that bill, following the Constitutional Court ruling in the Fourie judgment. The Fourie judgment indicated that same-sex unions must have the same benefits as marriages, but did not require that they should be called marriages. And although we opposed the Civil Union Act at that time, it was passed, and the courts have interpreted that. Those are the three acts. Sadly, in 2020, after the ACDP had written in the Civil Union Act a conscientious objection, where Home Affairs officials would not be obliged to do same-sex unions, marriages, whatever you want to call it, unions, that clause was removed. So now we're seeing Home Affairs wanting to consolidate all these pieces of legislation into one bill, one marriage bill. And this is where we've got objections. This is where we filed our formal objections. The first point is, of course, that marriage is a God-given institution as recognized between a male and a female. That point we make very strongly in our submission. And the courts themselves have recognized the importance of recognizing and protecting the traditional marriage between a husband and a wife as being the core of society, DP, the core. And we see society breaking down because of a breakdown in the family unit. We also say that the single marriage bill that is proposed is unnecessary because we've already got these pieces of legislation that have been in existence and have been interpreted by the courts, and therefore there is no need now for them all to be consolidated into one bill, which will cause a lot of legal uncertainty and which we do not think is necessary. We also believe that the issues relating to the protection of polygamous customary marriages has already been set out by our courts, and why that will cause even greater uncertainty when that chapter is now put into a single marriage bill. It must be pointed out that in the chapter dealing with polygamous marriages, there's reference to spouse, there's reference to husband, and it could be that those terms are removed as well, which would result in a lot of uncertainty, particularly when you see a lot of gender-neutral language. And in fact, we understand that when this proposal was aired and there were public hearings on it, that there were some gender activists that objected to the words husband, wife, and said, we want gender-neutral language. Now, again, we see a clash of worldviews here. On the issue, DP, of other faiths and marriages recognized in terms of other faiths, it is disappointing and, in fact, disgraceful that after many years from 1994, that marriages recognized, Jewish marriages, Hindu marriages, Muslim marriages, are still not recognized from a religious perspective, those couples in those religious marriages need to then have a civil union to be recognized in terms a civil, not a civil union, but a civil process that they go before a magistrate because their religious marriages are not recognized in terms of our marriage bill. Now, that deficiency is being met in terms of an amendment, the Divorce Amendment Bill, which now recognizes Muslim marriages and defines them. So religious marriages are also catered for in an amendment bill, which we are dealing with in the Justice Portfolio Committee. So other religions could also be accommodated as the Muslim religions are. What is disappointing to me is that there was so much focus on same-sex unions, but very little focus on the consequences of those religious marriages, other religions that have yet to be recognized as religious marriages. And of course, the patrimonial consequences of that. So that is being addressed. So DP, when one considers all these issues, one can only come to the conclusion that there is an agenda at work here, and that we as Christians need to take a very strong stance on the issue of saying, firstly, that marriage is a God-given institution, recognizing a marriage between a husband and a wife. Secondly, our existing laws are separate and sufficient to deal with the different worldviews that we have in South Africa at the moment. That religious marriages can be accommodated in terms, as is being done in terms of the Muslim marriage, given the fact that we stand as a party for freedom of religion. But if the single marriage bill is continued with, then one has got great concern when you see what gender activists are pushing for, and that is the removal of any reference to gender in the marriage bill. And of course, then you could have, as people are saying, you could have a whole lot of
Steve, we've lost your sound. Are you muted? We've lost you there, Steve. Your sound has gone off.
Yes, sorry, DP.
All right.
To conclude that I think these are areas of great concern for us as the ACDP, given our biblical worldview, and one sees a greater tendency to break down that traditional family unit that we know as a husband and a wife for the betterment of society, but also recognizing that already our courts have interpreted polygamous customary marriages, same-sex unions, and there is no need for this single marriage bill, which can have drastic consequences given the push of gender activists for totally gender neutral language, which could see the removal of the words male spouse, husband, which could mean in the chapter dealing with polygamous marriages, you could have a number of partners within this arrangement, which should be totally unacceptable to us who hold to a Judeo-Christian view of marriage.
Steve, thank you. Thank you so much. But maybe just one or two questions, Steve, before we conclude this, and hopefully we'll be able to also put up our flyer, which is an indication or which will give some information about the march that we're planning to have. All right, there we go. There's the march. But before we come to the flyer, Joshua, I just wanted to ask Steve one or two questions. Steve, the incremental increase that we are seeing of the influence, particularly of your so-called woke group. We noticed that, for example, with the civil union bill, at first your members of your marriage officers at Home Affairs would be able to object to a marriage, same-sex marriage, on the basis of religion and conscience. However, that does not now seem to be the case in terms of the 2020 Amendment Bill. So the 2020 Amendment Bill removed that that particular clause. So here we've seen firstly where they were given the option, now they don't have the option. So those who are employed by the department, whether you are Christian, whether you are a conscientious objector or not, you have no choice. If a same-sex couple comes into the department and you are the marriage officer at the time, you have to marry them. All right. So there's this creep, this incremental creep where we appear to be losing the ground. Now, the Constitution says that you cannot discriminate and should not be discriminated on the basis of color, creed, religion, gender, sexual orientation, but also religion and your conscience. You cannot be discriminated against. And so, the freedom of religion, the freedom for you to exercise the use of your conscience is protected by the Constitution. But what I'm seeing is a move towards supporting the agenda of the left and the extreme left, the woke group, and their so-called constitutional rights over and above the rights of freedom of religion and conscience. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's very important to go way back to the Fareed judgment, which allowed, although not saying that same-sex couples should have marriages, but should have the same entitlement. In that case, it's very interesting reading that Judge Sachs laid out the relationship between the religion sector and other sectors. And he said in paragraph 89, in the open and democratic society contemplated by the Constitution, although the rights of non-believers and minority faiths must be fully respected, the religious beliefs held by the great majority of South Africans must be taken seriously. Now, that's a very important statement. However, as the judgment continued, then the Judge Sachs and the court came back and said, but those religious views cannot trump other views in this particular case. So whilst the court has upheld the rights of religious beliefs, in this case, it was trumped. And when it came to the drafting of the Civil Union Act, we from the ACDP side, whilst we opposed it, we tried to improve the legislation by insisting on a conscientious objection. That was inserted. That was then removed through a private member's bill in 2020. I think it was Cope that brought that bill, if I remember correctly. Now, what we are saying, if they continue with this draft bill, the draft single marriage bill, which we are not in favor of, we would insist on a conscientious objection, because here we're not only talking about the possibility of Home Affairs officials, but we're talking about all religious officers might be obliged to engage in marriages that you might not agree with, such as same-sex unions, such as other such unions. Now, that conscientious objection clause would be very important. And I think that is a crucial aspect. Of course, we still will have our existing law. I see there's a question, DP, about marrying a child from Marion. No. Your existing law, a child under the age of 18 and will not be able to get married without special permission. I think that is what the act, the draft bill, that is what the act says at the moment. So you would not, that would not be permissible. I think the age of 16 with very specific special requirements, but the draft bill speaks about the age of 18. And it's a good point that is raised, because we know that is can be a very abuse where you have elderly people marrying children, and that cannot be acceptable. So that would stay. I hope that's helpful to you, DP. Just before
very helpful. Yeah, no, very helpful, Steve. I think it was some good input, and thank you again for sharing. Thank you for all of the work that you do on the Justice Portfolio Committee in Parliament. One of the longest serving, I think maybe the longest serving member on the Justice Portfolio Committee, and that's from the ACDP. Some people don't realize the history and the legacy that we have, the depth that we have within the ACDP. And so, Steve, thank you for all the work that you do. it's appreciated. And so let's look at some comments. Some comments that we have. Corinne de Klerk, one husband and one wife. I tell my church I have one God, one church, and one wife. So that's my position. Same-sex union is a direct contestation against God's given family structure. Tlotliso Mputi, yes, absolutely. Ferlin, yes, MP Swart, God instituted marriage, absolutely. Joseph, nicely summed up, MP Steve, yes, there is definitely an agenda involved in the woke left. Thank you. Tlotliso again, so what if your right is so whatever trumps on my freedom of religion and conscience? Yeah. I think that's where we are heading, and that's one of the reasons why we've got to go to the streets. So if we are ready with that, with our flyer, just Simi, thank you, Honorable Sir, very informative. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so there's the flyer, and our Honorable Member Steve Swart has unpacked the ACDP's position, some of the dangers of the single marriage bill and why we are opposed to it. So let's join us this coming Friday, the 15th of September, starting at 10 a.m. And the place will be Church Square, Tshwane CBD. The march will be marching to the Department of Home Affairs in Pretoria. So put on your ACDP t-shirts and your sneakers and come and support the God-ordained institution of marriage. Marriage is an institution ordained by God. And this is one of the reasons why we've got to fight for it. All right. Let it not be said that God sought for a man who would stand in the gap on behalf of the nation, but he found none. So let's come out in our thousands on Friday. So the Lord bless you. And thank you again to our Honorable Steve Swartz. All right. Next up, we have our other Member of Parliament, and that is the Honorable Mari Sukers. And she has been involved in the process, the Section 194, I think it is, the process of looking at the removal of our public protector, and she's going to inform us of the ACDP's position that was taken. So, Honorable Sukers, we've had also some misinformation that somehow got out onto the mainstream media, and they misinterpreted the ACDP position. So over to you, Madam, as you share the position of the ACDP on the public protector issue.
Yes. Good evening to everyone. Good evening, DP. I just have a problem with my internet, so you can just indicate if if I am clear and if the picture is clear, because I'm working between two devices due to the bandwidth at the moment. DPS, I indicated this afternoon, I think it would be very good for both yourself and Steve to join me, possibly in some of the issues that I would be raising. The ACDP definitely supported the report by the committee that was submitted in Parliament yesterday, and that report found that Advocate Mkhwebane misconducted herself and that she is not fit to hold the office of public protector. Now, when we look at the report and the subsequent vote, where the majority of the House, I think it's more than 300 MPs voted for the motion, in support of the motion, with 43 people against and 1 abstention by the Congress of the People. It is a weighty matter, this, and a very sensitive matter, and most likely this matter will be going on review and will be, as the Economic Freedom Fighters has indicated, together with a few other supporters of the public protector, that they will take the matter on review. So it is quite a sensitive matter. But I want to highlight what I've said. One, that the majority of the House, 300 members of Parliament, has supported this and stood in unison on principle of constitutional obligation and duty of the public protector in terms of her role and the duty of Parliament as an oversight body. That means that Parliament oversees and ultimately is responsible to hold Chapter 9 heads, which the public protector is one of, hold them accountable. Now, the issue of accountability is a very important one. The question that was posed by some people that I would like to respond to is the question around why the ACDP supported this motion, given that Advocate Mkhwebane is a Christian. And DP, I need to highlight to our supporters, our listeners that are on the platform, that this is a process, an inquisitorial process. It was not prosecution of the public protector. It was an inquiry, meaning that evidence was put before the committee. It is one of the largest committees. It is the largest committee in the history of Parliament. It is a first for this democratic Parliament that there was an impeachment of a Chapter 9 head. And so there's two things highlighted here. The one is that you have the oversight role of Parliament being conducted by the whole of the National Assembly, the parties that are represented there. And this is a constitutional obligation. Parliament is to hold the executive to account, and it is to hold and oversee and hold accountable the heads of Chapter 9 institutions. So this is not a witch hunt. It is not an illegitimate process that happened. What has happened is that the Democratic Alliance has put a motion before the House. That motion was based on the adverse findings by the courts against the public protector. And I will just mention 4 of them. The one being the South African Reserve Bank, the judgment in the Vrede Diary matter, the CX matter, the Lifeboat matter. Those, the Lifeboat report, those reports had far-reaching consequences, or the judgments had far-reaching consequences. One, on the financial consequences on the Office of the Public Protector or Public Protector South Africa, and it had an impact on the image and the integrity of that office. So why is that important? It is important because Parliament's function is to oversee how that office functions, right? So in light of those judgments that was made, adverse judgments, that scathing judgments, where the highest courts in our country found that the public protector applied the law incorrectly and that she was in instances dishonest and therefore misconducted herself. And the court making the judgment, or in their judgments, saying that the public protector incorrectly applied the law. The onus is on Parliament as part of its constitutional duty to then execute it and to then effect its oversight mandate, meaning oversee the functioning of that office. So this is, we need to address the issue that this is made out to be, a witch hunt or a conspiracy. I'm not going to go into the detail because of the time in terms of backing up the argument, specifically when it comes to, is this a conspiracy against an individual? When we look at the judgments and the implication of these judgments, once the court has found the public protector has incorrectly applied the law, what the public protector did was to take the matters on a review. Now, this means that the cost of not only defending the reports of the public protector, but then also to continue with reviews in courts and to higher courts, even up to the Constitutional Court, it means that the cost to this office escalated to the point where it impedes the functioning of the office. Now, I need to go back to what is the role of the public protector. The public protector, and it was presented to the committee in a very profound manner by Hassan Ibrahim, who formed part of the drafters of our constitution, in terms of the high ideals that is put upon the office of the public protector, chief of which is the protection of the vulnerable and the poor, to ensure that they have an avenue. This office is exactly what it says, the protection of the public. And it is one of our constitutional legacies of actually one of the treasured institutions of our democracy. It's a gift of our democracy, meaning that you may not have money to defend yourself, to secure your rights as a poor person, but you have the Public Protector South Africa that then can act on your behalf where your constitutional rights have been ignored or undermined, or you have been treated unfairly against in any matter. So when this office is being, is one, not able to function in its duty to protect the rights of poor South Africans because of lack of finances, because it does not have the funds, it means the office is impeded in its function. And ultimately, the person responsible to manage the resources of that office is the public protector. So I am outlaying that to say that the impact of misconduct, the impact of going and taking cases, instead of learning from a judgment and implementing the measures that would improve the function of the office, for the public protector then to go out instead of that, but to take on the judgments of the court up until the highest office, highest court, has a financial implication, and we have to hold the public protector accountable for how she manages the funds of that office. So this is one example of the oversight function, meaning we are literally, in layman's terms or in plain language, you are supervising and looking over an office that has extraordinary powers. And this is the other point that I want to add. Because of the implication and the powers of the public protector, it means that, or the Constitution demands, that the public protector should be, one, act without fear or favor, and should approach any investigation into a matter with an independent and an open mind. And there are several judgments, and Steve can elaborate on that, where the courts found that the public protector misconducted herself in terms of being acting in a manner that is not independent and that is not in favor of. And we can look at the Vrede Dairy matter specifically, where you had farmers or poor farmers that was disadvantaged to the extreme, that Vrede Dairy matter brought more money into the coffers. The Gupta matters, you can all tie them together. But in the end, it found that Vrede Dairy matter, the Justice Committee had to ask the public protector to go back with a report and then to look at those implicated in the report. We don't have the time really to discuss the weightiness and the details in order for me to convey the weight of the matter as it pertains to this. So when you look at all of these things, and I've just mentioned the Vrede Dairy, I lastly will use the South African Reserve Bank judgment. When the report of the public protector came out in the South African Reserve Bank matter, it had a negative impact on the market, and the rand plummeted because of the extreme recommendation made by the public protector that is a matter for Parliament and not her, and not for her, and goes outside of the boundaries of her authority. And the court found against her in that matter, but it had huge economic implications for the country. So these are the matters that were before the committee. It is a matter that took a year. The defense of the public protector went to 30 million rand. This is the largest amount of money that was spent on the defense in the public sector. And Parliament should revisit that because we cannot have that the taxpayers' money is being squandered in this manner. Squandered because the year duration of this matter or the inquiry is directly because of the conduct of the public protector and legal representatives. Lastly, the fact that the public protector failed to appear before the committee to give her side on the evidence that was before the committee speaks again to a total and a flagrant disregard for the constitutional obligation and the oversight function of Parliament. It's an insult to Parliament. And when you look at how the public protector, through her legal representatives, has treated the inquiry, politicized it, made it a political theater, it would actually give effect to further charges and speaks again and puts a question on the fitness of Advocate Mkhwebane to hold this office, given the powers, the extensive powers of the public protector and what that office means in terms of our democracy and our constitution. And it is the ACDP's recommendation, actually, and that we will place before the committee in our last meeting, that the public protector's office should not be a cadre deployment. It should not be a political appointment, but it requires an independent person with, we would say, at the level of a judge with years of experience and with the maturity to handle this office. Because otherwise, what we have seen since 2016 is that this office becomes highly political and it becomes politicized. And as you saw it play out, it becomes a battle. So I would stop at that political battle. I would stop it.
No, all right. Thank you, Honorable Sukkers. I think hopefully this would give our supporters, our members, and even some of the disgruntled members out there, the other side of the coin. I think that we're going to just be calling in MP Swartz in a few minutes, in a few seconds. But I think it's important also for us to realize, the Audi, what is called the Audi alterum partem principle, hearing the other side. And so some people have taken a decision in terms of, the ACDP's, the position that we took on Advocate Mkhwebane, but they haven't heard our side and why we actually took that particular position. So now that it's been unpacked, and we've had Honorable Sukkers, who spent an inordinate amount of time going through the evidence, the mountain of evidence that was presented at Parliament within the committee, and dealt with the issues, and found that the public protector was wanting. She came short. Now, and this is where I want to bring Honorable Swartz in. Steve, the issue of supporting one because they are a Christian, and this is what people were saying, that the public protector is a Christian and we should be standing alongside of her and supporting her. On the other end, there's been all of this evidence of not being able to interpret the law properly, and then the abuse of funds, as we've heard from Honorable Sukkers, in taking rulings that were against her to the highest court, and this is public funds that are being used in an attempt to prove herself right, and then still being found to be wrong. How would you explain explain that to our supporters? Christian versus the findings of the courts in terms of her position.
Well, I was very involved in the appointment of Advocate Nkobani, and I supported her at that time because of her faith and because of her Christian values. But sadly, when one then looks at the judgments that have been passed, and what is very incisive is that not only did the courts find that she did not follow the law and did not possibly understand her position very well, they found that there was such a degree of incompetence that they passed a cost order against her in her personal capacity. Now, that is a very extreme process by a court which expresses its extreme dissatisfaction with a person's conduct. And I think it's important for us to take a step back and consider what Chief Justice Mogoeng spoke when he spoke about the previous public protector who was exemplary, Advocate Thuli Madonsela. And he said, the public protector is the embodiment of the biblical David, defending the public against the well-resourced Goliath of the state. And he went on to say that the public protector's office is pivotal to strengthen the country's democracy and ensuring good governance. That the public protector is a crusader for anti-corruption and clear governance. Now, it's not good enough just to say that you are a Christian, you might be a wonderful Christian, but when you make mistakes, you must be held accountable. Even King David made mistakes and was held accountable by Nathan the prophet at great expense. So I don't accept the argument that purely because the incumbent, who's now been fired basically by Parliament, was a Christian, that we should all just fall alongside her and support her incompetence. That is totally unacceptable. The courts have expressed very severely. Not only that, I want to honor our member Mari Sukkers, who worked very hard during this inquiry over many, many months, and those MPs that were subjected and those witnesses that were subjected to a lot of insults by the legal team of Advocate Nkobani. And I think one's got to say it forthright and firmly that even if you say you're a believer, you look at the fruit of your Christianity. And in this case, the public protector failed dismally in our view, and the courts vindicated that. The court said that, as did Parliament. This is the first time that we've ever had such an impeachment, and it was broadly accepted across benches, save for a few exceptions, that this impeachment should proceed and that would be the end of Advocate Nkobani's tenure as the public protector.
Well, thank you. We want to say a big thank you to Honorable Sukkers and to Honorable Steve Swart for their inputs, and also again for the sterling work that they do. I want to just say to our supporters and our members out there, to those who have been streaming in, many of the time I get comments like, the ACDP for review at Parliament, but the ACDP punches above their weight. And so very clearly, it's because of the hard work that the ACDP members put in. Like you see, Honorable Sukkers and Honorable Swart, these are not shirkers. Our ACDP members understand what hard work is, understand the importance of representing South Africa and representing our constituent space and representing the church. That is our basic position. We cannot shy away from it. It is who we are. It's what we are called to do. And those also. So there's the church, and then there are those who agree with our particular values that may be outside of the church. Some of them are Jewish, and some of them are Hindu, and some Muslim, and others from different faiths. But because of the value system that the ACDP adheres to, we have people that actually support the ACDP. All right, so let's just take a few comments before we start winding down. So a big thank you again to Honorable Sukkers and Honorable Swart for the work that they do representing the ACDP in Parliament. I'm not sure, I saw one or two comments that came through. Joshua, do we have any other comments? If not, then we will just move on to our final topic for tonight, which is going to be the multi-party charter. But let's just have a look. Are there any comments? Are people still with us? Or has this particular topic been so weighty that, all right. Tlotliso Mputi, will the public protector's exit affect the Phala findings? Well, this is the challenge. The challenge is that the incumbent and the acting public protector has found that the president, that there was no wrongdoing in the president, rather found that he is the presidential protection unit and the man responsible for protecting the property and the president, that he rather is the one that needs to be blamed for the Phala saga. So we do have a bit of a challenge with the acting public protector, who is amongst those who has been touted to be in the front running for the post of public protector. So very clearly, I think that our position, where the acting public protector has already put her, almost nailed her colors to the mast in what seems to us allegedly protecting the unprotectable, which is the dollars found in President Cyril Ramaphosa's couch. So, Marianne, that's such a great pity. We should be able to trust the public protector. Clearly, I think that the standard that the public protector ought to be held it's a high standard to hold her against, and it's sad that it has to go this way. ACDP Limpopo, very clear presentation of the seriousness of the matter and the graveness of transgressions of the public protector. Well, I'm glad that particular message went through. Jerome Alex September, thank you, MP Sukers. Very well explained. It makes more sense now why Mkhwebane had to go. All right. So I'm glad that then the message was explained clearly and that our members have understood the position of the ACDP. All right. Now, I want to just speak about just the multi-party charter. Recall that the position of the ACDP has always been that we will not enter into any coalition, not until the election results have been made known. And that's been our ACDP position, and the ACDP will not move away from that position. You cannot effectively, meaningfully engage and establish a coalition when you don't know what the election results are, when you don't know which political party is coming in with greater strength, greater numbers than the other political parties. And so it's difficult. You cannot even begin to talk about who obtains what particular positions based on the strength of the different political parties. And then there's the give, and then there's the take, and there's the trading also that has to take place in terms of looking at what is the benefit, the best benefit to the country. And sometimes you have to forego your particular position so that South Africa wins at the end of the day. So very clearly, we have indicated as the ACDP that coalitions can only meaningfully be established after an election result is made known. Now, if one also looks at the history, when I joined the ACDP and right up to the early 2000s, when we had a coalition agreement in the Western Cape with the DA amongst other political parties, where the ANC lost ground in the Western Cape, we were a part of that particular process. We were a part of the process of also drawing up the documents in terms of establishing coalitions. So ACDP members of parliament and senior members of the ACDP, one of them also being Steve Swart, our MP, was involved in that particular process of drafting the coalition agreements going forward. So, Steve, just maybe very quickly, just if we can just bring Steve in quickly. That has been our position, and the position, though, however, was also when we looked at prior to the election, political parties did come together to look at how can we support each other. For example, ensuring that we're coming together to ensuring that we put the necessary pressure on the IEC, that the IEC does what they're supposed to do. We come together, so where one political party does not have sufficient party agents, then the political parties will cover for each other. So there was this kind of loose agreement that prior to an election, we had these kind of negotiations. So maybe, Steve, just quickly, if you can just share your experience on that. You know, the fact that the ACDP was involved in the drafting of those coalition documents, and then how the arrangement with the different political parties. This is in the early 2000s, going up into perhaps after 2010 as well.
Well, yes, we did draft some documents, but obviously the benefit of working together with some opposition parties and not in a coalition is to meet the challenge of manning all your election stations. Now, continually, we hear from independent observers that there are so many of the ACDP votes, because we're so close to the ANC on the ballot sheet, that are slipped under the ANC. And we don't have enough agents to watch all our ballots. And one of the benefits of the discussions with other parties was to have enough agents. Their opposition political parties can't cover all the bases. And one of the benefits was to say, let's try and see if we can't protect each other's ballots and trying to discuss that. So this could be a benefit that one could have. And it's not a coalition, but a broad working together, because most of the opposition parties, we all are in agreement that the ANC could drop below 2024. But in order to achieve that, every single vote that is cast for an opposition party like the ACDP must be protected at the station. And if we don't have enough agents there, and if we can reach an informal agreement with other political parties to help us where we don't have agents, then it does make sense to me. It makes eminent sense. Obviously, the first prize is to have all your agents everywhere, but to form an informal arrangement that's not a coalition, because as you pointed out, it's important. You only know the strength after the elections. But why not?
Great.
Why not as in the past? One has that discussion.
Great. No, thank you, Steve. So we want to just indicate that the ACDP, again, reiterate, we will not go into any coalitions prior to an election. Now, the Moonshot Pact is dead and buried. What we now have is the National Multi-Party Charter. That multi-party charter is looking at putting together some guidelines. It's looking at putting some rules which will facilitate coalition government. So what will make it easier? So there is a very high probability that post 2024, the ANC will get way below the 50% threshold, as Honorable Steve has mentioned. And the ACDP also has got to position itself. We are trusting God that this will be the best election ever for the African Christian Democratic Party. And so we need to also look at ways of protecting our vote and working together, if that be with other political parties, to ensure that we are able to bring the ANC way below that 50% threshold. We cannot go into another. It will be, are we still there? I'm just wondering. all right, it seems as if we to the ACDP, but to South Africa as a whole. All right, so on that basis, we want to say a big thank you. Our time has run out. We have exceeded our time. We want to just say a big thank you again to everybody that has participated tonight. Thank you to Honorable Steve Swart, Honorable Maurice Sukkers. Again, our apologies from our president, who was not able to join us tonight because of his travels with the other political party leaders and the place where they are, the poor connection. But we definitely will see him next week. All right, so we're going to close in prayer. Let me just pronounce the blessing as we close. And now I pray the Lord bless you and the Lord keep you. And the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And the Lord lift up his countenance to you and give you peace. And everybody who can hear me says, amen. God bless you and see you next week.